Welcome to another episode of Hot Zone. Your boys from Charge the Line here, and we're just talking about my buddy's just awesome photo that they put out the other day.
Yeah. Not so awesome.
Yeah. So what was that for? You were doing a.
We did a demo. We did a demo we got Thanksgiving this week, and so we do try to do it every year. We didn't do it last year. We did it the year before, but a safety turkey frying video, so that we can kind of put some tips out there for. Those of you frying a turkey over Thanksgiving, make sure you don't burn your garage down.
You're supposed to put it in frozen, right? That's
don't do that. and that's it's funny that you say that because we did everything wrong in the video intentionally
on purpose. Yeah.
Yes. So we used the frozen turkey. We overfilled used too much oil, got the oil too hot, and did it in a garage or like in a enclosed area. So
right.
we're doing that intentionally to make sure to show illustrate how dangerous it could be. So the minute that oil is boiling hot. And it's overfilled, it's filled to the brim. So when the minute for one, you start to submerge the turkey and the oil starts to spill over. You get spillover, it's going to hit the flame and flare up. It'll flare up. But the frozen turkey also, it's going to be the water and ice in there is going to expand, as soon as it hits that boiling oil and cause even more of a dramatic eruption,
Yeah.
So,
and then never inside, of course.
Never inside, never around combustibles. You want to be 10 foot from a building is what our ordinance says. And so, we did that for the media so that they could record it and then we could talk about it. And we'll also have a video. Our comms team was there. They'll do a internal video also. But
I'm not gonna say I've ever, fried a turkey in my garage or anything.
Yeah.
But I could see how people, get
well, and then plus most garages, right? Like you got, the garage is like the number one place to put stuff.
Yeah.
So you got just full
all
of
your gas
stuff. Probably like you're pulling your Christmas stuff down. So all your decorations are probably laid out on the garage floor like mine are right now in cardboard boxes. It's just those are all combustibles. So
yeah. Amy hasn't made you put decorations up yet.
Not yet.
We already got a damn Christmas tree up.
Yeah.
Man.
Usually for us it's after. So this is the week that it's after this. I'll start getting the look.
Ashley looked at her story, I guess, on Facebook, and she was like, "This time last year, we already had our balloon or our inflatables out."
Yeah,
and I was like, "All right, I was like, we can wait till the day after at least."
Well, we're gonna talk about safety today, and we're gonna see how safe we were when we were on the very last step of the ladder, putting up the big wreath on your front. So it's like no safety whatsoever.
Yeah, that was, of course, that's off duty, right? So. We tend to take dumber risk off duty than on duty, but yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about today. We I think, and this is a really good podcast for anybody in the fire service, because there's a lot of contention behind this topic, right? And the topic is safety. Now, you think safety, and inherently our job is dangerous, and we have gotten so much better, I feel, as a service. Not just our department, but I'm just talking about it as a culture of safety in the fire service, because of all the data, all the research, all and the things that are being put
advances
out there.
In equipment too, advances in PPE.
Oh yeah,
advances
absolutely.
in a lot of
well, and some of that is good and bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the advances in the equipment isn't so that we can go and be in there longer, hotter than we're supposed to be.
Closer,
it's to protect us, right? But, there's also, I think there's a fine line. There really is, because we all talk about, we talk about the risk analysis, risk benefit, or what is it? The
risk versus reward.
Yeah, risk versus reward, but risk-based analysis assessment, right? Yeah. Like when you're looking at doing something dangerous, what is the risk that we're willing to take and what is the reward that we're going to gain from that?
Risk evaluation.
And that's something, our risk evaluation is something that I think, any officer, whether you're any actor, any officer, any command officer, that's the first thing that we're looking at, right?
Yeah. And continuously looking, right?
Yeah, because conditions change.
Conditions change.
Right? But there's also, I think there's a push out there almost to be too safe, right? There are some departments, the biggest department headline that I've seen recently, and I actually heard it on another podcast, but right now Chicago FD, their guys, their trucks run with 4 people. Mm-hmm. And they just recently, their administration actually put something out, and the union is actually the one that was pretty upset by this. Because, the union is represented by the firefighters, mm-hmm. right? Or represents the firefighters. But basically, firefighters will only be permitted to break protocol and enter with more than one firefighter upon arrival if there are visible victims in immediate danger or if bystanders report that there are people inside. Right?
So only if it's confirmed.
So only if it's confirmed. Now, the issue with this is it means that 22% of the department's companies must wait for a battalion chief or another company to arrive before entering a burning building. Now, my question there is we put these things out there, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait until this happens, right? So their first thing there is until a battalion chief arrives. Mm-hmm. How is that? I can understand, okay, waiting, like for us, we have our 2 in, 2 out rule, right?
Well, everybody has 2 in, 2 out.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
And if it's an FPA standard, yeah.
Right. But with having a battalion chief out there, if you go in and you're overcome by, fire,
right.
or you have a emergency in your mask or something, what is that battalion be able to do to help you other than redirect everybody else, unless he's getting out and going in himself?
And he's also, I think I don't want to speak for that, but he's the element of being command outside,
right.
in an environment, a safer environment than being the mobile command that would be inside on that first arriving officer.
So I wanted to go over that because so the change obviously was prompted by Illinois OSHA mandate, which was following a study they did on line of duty deaths. Mm-hmm. So obviously they've had some line of duty deaths that they feel could have been preventable if there had been more people there or they had waited to go into these structures. But the stance that they're taking, these are the changes. They must take a defensive stance first on all fires. Now remember, this is if it's verified that nobody is inside. Now, these are not abandoned structures because there's a big difference, right? Yeah. If we're going up to an abandoned structure that's boarded up, nobody's probably in there, or
that's the question. Is it's easier to get a confirmation that nobody's in there on a residence,
right?
A single family dwelling than it is on a vacant structure, because we can always ask the question, like, especially vacants, because a lot of times they don't have power. So if there's no power, there's no no heat source, limited combustibles. How is the house on fire? Well, someone had to set it,
right?
And then you do have the question, or you have to ask yourself, someone could be in there. And
that brings up a good point, because it's like, okay, so now you're telling me that we can go in when we have somebody there, but when we have the owner telling us, this, nobody's inside, but the stairs are straight ahead. The room that you're looking for is straight to your left. Like, you're telling me waiting for that to continue to burn until I get another unit there is safer than me just going in and knocking it down as fast as I can in the safest fashion I can. Yeah. And so I think that's why these guys are having the issues that they're having, because it's saying that first companies must begin any non-high-rise fire with defensive operations. Mm-hmm. Any non-high-rise, meaning they fight the fire from the exterior, right? Which sometimes that's a good thing. Sure. Sometimes you can knock down fire and reset the fire to make it easier for you to go inside. As far as their entry conditions, interior attack and search operations are only to begin immediately if there are clearly visible victims who are in imminent danger, mm-hmm. or if information for bystanders or the alarm office confirms people are trapped inside. So that's kind of going by, what we do right now. Yeah. Right. That's
in that it's 2 in, 2 out. It's like you have to have confirmed. If it's confirmed that no one's in there, then
you go in. Yeah.
If it's confirmed that no one's in there, no one's in there, then you would take that defensive stance. You would wait to have your official 2 in, 2 out before you made entry.
Right.
And normally, and that's the whole thing too. We can look at it, the standards as a whole. Like, you have standards as to when people are going to show up on a regular alarm. So like, you should, within those few minutes, have multiple, because it's like the first arriver gets there at a certain amount of time. Don't quote me because I don't want to say it wrong, but at a first, like a benchmark for one, and then the complete alarm should be there by another standardized time as to whatever that time is, to where you should have crews that are in a
right. Well, we're fortunate because we're in a pretty good sized
apartment
where we have people showing up. If
sometimes at the same time,
if you're on scene and you're on there and you show up and it takes people more than 2 minutes to get there, then there's probably something going on. But it also, one of the other changes was incident command role. The first arriving company officer will assume the role of incident commander and remain outside the building, which union leaders fear will delay interior access and suppress interior operations. So this is something that we do, but that transfer of command where our battalion shows up and we give, or acting battalion shows up and we have that transfer command, like you said, it's relatively fast. So they're saying they don't like that because of the fact that it's going to slow them down because, but the other thing is this is with a 4-person crew.
Yeah.
Right. This is with a 4-person crew. So essentially, don't you already have 2 in, 2 out?
Yeah.
Like with this crew.
Yeah.
So you got 4 guys. Can you imagine your house is on fire?
Yeah.
Fire department shows up and they're waiting outside while there's, and maybe, like you said, sometimes you can get away with knocking it down from the outside.
Yeah.
But if it's a deep-seated fire and there's black smoke pushing out and it's a back bedroom and you can't get to it or whatever, and you're just sitting there, like,
yeah, and I don't know about perception's reality sometimes, and I can't imagine them just like sitting there. Like, just,
imagine it, bro.
Because you have to do a 360. You have to, I would stretch the hose.
Right. Get everything ready.
Yeah. And so it's like you're going to be doing things. And then, like you said, if it's a deep seated fire, maybe hitting it from the outside is an option, So
right.
It's not, I don't think of it as they're just sitting there and we'll just wait for someone else to come before we do anything.
Well, now you're thinking of it from, I think, an aspect of what you've seen in our department.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like our guys are pretty
proactive.
aggressive.
Yeah.
We're proactive. But in reality, not everybody is.
Yeah.
And so my thing is when you start to take this safety culture to a point where
to an extreme.
To where now it's giving guys who are already a little timid of going in, now it's giving them even more reason. My thing is also the fire gets worse by the second. All the time during Christmas, what you see those ads where they show the Christmas tree on fire, and then the room catches, the couch catches, and within less than a minute, the entire room is fully involved. Right. So, I definitely can understand being safe, but I also feel when you handicap a unit to be able to make tactical decisions like that by implementing an SOP. These are not SOGs. These are policies. So this is a policy that they put in, and that's something that for everybody that's listening, the difference is an SOG is a guideline, not a policy. A policy, a SOP, is something that this is the way you do it, right? And SOG is this is the way you do it, but you can also deviate, right? So, I can appreciate our department for having the SOGs that we do, because it does give the officer that ability to make those critical decisions in the moment they need to make them. When you handicap those officers out there, then it's, number one, it's going to kill the morale, because now you're kind of micromanaging the way that these guys have fought fire. Number two, it really is, it's not a good public perception to have any unit on scene. I remember for a long time, our rescue units, Rescue 3, it would get there. They were fast, right? They ain't got no water.
Yeah.
Right. So they get there. And I remember there were times where it's like they would beat units that had water there. And they're literally like you said, they'll do a 360 or whatever. But you got guys out in the front yard. Maybe they're forcing doors or whatever, but they're like, the public doesn't know that. They don't know that. They see a big red truck with lights on, and they're thinking these guys need to be pulling lines and getting in that structure.
Especially if they pull up and they're going to pull past the house because they don't have anything to pull down. So it's like, where are they going?
So then it's like, oh, that's not good. So, and reality is, I'm not trying to say cowboy antics are acceptable, because they're not.
No.
But I think from an administrative stance, when you have an administration that's kind of telling you not to go in, you're going to wait no matter what. Man, there's a lot that can go back, especially now with new construction. We know the numbers. We know the facts. We know that houses come down a lot faster than what they did. If there's a house that is new construction and it's one room that's on fire, and I have to wait till that other unit comes in now, and the research isn't out there because we don't do this yet, but when I go in now, if that's into the attic space, now it's affecting the rafters. Now I go inside when I have a backup team or whatever. Now we're all in danger, because now that fire has progressed past past an opportunity of us to be able to put it out when it was a lot smaller.
Incipient, yeah.
Yeah, you know. So I had seen that, man, and I think you know, I know Chicago, they're usually pretty aggressive, and I think, you know, they're looking at these line of duty deaths, and
Sure.
and I think you
don't know the history of what happened in their department or what's going on,
and we don't. But I also feel like, man, you got to really wonder, like, those line of duty deaths, were they because people were going in when they shouldn't, or were they being too aggressive, or were they not wearing their equipment properly? Were they not, you know, what? There's so many what ifs.
There's so many variables.
But my thing is, if you show up and you know, you have a obvious fire, you got good visibility in the building still, and it hasn't extended into the attic space, which you can see from the outside, right? Just when you pull up, that's part of your size up. Mm-hmm. Why would we just sit there and wait? Why would we just, you know, I understand the safety aspect of, you know, making sure that there's another crew there so that if we get in trouble, but by waiting, I think that's just delaying our success, and it's really making it exponentially, in my opinion. I mean, it's exponentially making it harder, and it's making the chances that this thing's going to get out of hand a lot higher. You know what I mean? You know, we talk about going in to structures. We've got great crews, and we've got guys that are aggressive. And one of the big things that for years we've talked about is, you know, doing searches and having a hose line in there. And now we're really kind of at the point where you don't need a hose line to do a search, right? You don't need to be, now it's nice to have that attack crew in there, right? But there's some departments that are kind of taking that stance where now they're not allowing anybody to do any searches unless there is a hose line in there. Actually, there was a fire in Honolulu earlier this year, January 6th, actually, 2025. There was a rookie firefighter. And the crazy thing about this one, and this is where I think we have to understand that our job is inherently dangerous and things are going to happen, right? Accidents happen. Unforeseen things. You don't know what's in the structure. Sometimes you can't prevent the inevitable. If it's your time, it's your time. In this situation, there was actually a hose line on the fire. They had ordered a search because they had what they thought was good knockdown on the fire. They thought the fire was being controlled. Apparently it wasn't. Apparently they had knocked it down, but it had spread into the attic space. And these guys went in without a hose line, right? They're the search team. Mm-hmm. So they went in without a hose line, and there was a roof collapse. And this firefighter passed. And so now they're starting to look at these things. You know, and this is for Honolulu. The only exception for entering a structure without an operational hose line is when an occupant can be seen or heard within a few feet of entry. Within a few feet of entry. So now you're taking a stance where you have a mom outside and she's telling you, my kid's in there, house is on fire and it's going, and nobody's on scene, right? To back you up. Mm-hmm. You can't go in there. You can't go in there because I can't see. It's not a few feet. It's in the back bedroom, right? At what point do we start looking at the fact that we know what we signed up for? We know what we took the oath for. You know, something that I saw not too long ago was that battalion chief that showed up on scene, put his air pack on, went inside a burning building with a pump can, and ended up pulling a 9-year-old little boy out. And the boy was burned, but he was able to get him out. Yeah. And the kid's recovering. Yeah. Like, that's the type of things, those are the calls that we prepare for. Mm-hmm. Those are the reasons why we preach being in shape and knowing your gear, knowing your strategy and tactics. That's your golden hour, right? That's your moment to step up and rise to the occasion, where all your training comes in and you're able to perform. And when departments start handicapping their guys from being able to act in those situations, then it's not going to be good for the community. You know. And so you know, I brought those two things up, but that's kind of what I wanted to kick off the topic about today, because you know, there are risks. When we go into a second story structure without a hose line to search for somebody, like, we know that there's risk, that there's danger, but we also know that we're willing to take those risks and take that danger on head on in a systematic, controlled fashion. And that's why we train. That's why we do what we do. That's why we look beyond just the physical, but we look at, you know, do you know how to read smoke? You know, do you know how to read the color, the velocity, is it pressurized? You know, all of those things come into account on your risk benefit analysis.
And one part too is that, and it's just, this is to the extreme, but like, your policies are part of your safety system. So, you know, if our policies, you know, specifically, without getting into a bunch of detail, like, you know, we do send people in without hose lines, but we have hose lines in the structure.
Right.
In fact, we have two. You know, we have a backup that's like just there, just in case.
Right.
And so it's like, you have to build safety into your policies. There's a safety factor that's into your culture, depending on how they operate at these, or tend to operate. And that's what's hard to talk about this right now when we talk about specifics, because we don't know the culture of those departments.
Right.
Maybe you had I'm not saying that they did, but maybe it was a bunch of cowboys just doing freelancing, doing whatever. So now this is the result of that. We're going to micromanage. We're going to bring you down. We're going to go from this side of the pendulum all the way over to the other side, where you can't do anything unless you get a direct order.
But do you think that's the answer?
It depends, right? Because it depends on the culture of the department. Because like I said, we don't know what that culture was. If it was so aggressive that people were dying every month, the line of duty deaths, because no one followed a command structure, then we're going to have a command structure that's very specific, and you can only do these things this way every time. And then eventually, as the culture starts to change, then we can loosen up those policies a little bit. And that's really, we have to look at the whole picture, because there's safety built it's omnipresent, right? It's in everything that you do. It's in our equipment. It's in your decisions you're making. It's in our policies. And depending on, so if we're lacking on decision making, then it's going to be heavier on the policies.
Right.
If we're pretty good at decision making and risk benefit analysis, we can kind of ease up and give you a guideline, because these guys make good decisions. So we could work with that. But I don't know. You know, we don't know. I know that other departments have fought that before and had that type of stuff. It's like, the transitional attack topic of itself was kind of put in to help also with people not making entry. We can hit it from the outside, knock it down, cool the building before we enter. And there's a lot of departments that have taken that on. Like, that is our number one. We do that every time, you know. Well, not us, but
but what's that backed by, right? That's backed by numbers.
By science,
you know, That's backed by science. That's backed by understanding flow path, and understanding how to cool a compartment space, and understanding survivability as well, right? Like understanding that that room, there's no way anybody's alive in there. Right?
Because that was always the problem with that type of tactic before, is that we said, well, the survivability if someone was in there, and now we just, you know, messed up the thermal layering and just burned them worse, you know. And it's like, man, if they were in that room, they were already burned, you know. So done. We just want to give them a chance, you know. But
then in turn, then we would suffer, because now we're not spraying from the outside, we're going in oftentimes through the unburned side, and we're suffering through all that heat.
Yeah, we're
in the guys are getting burned. We're in the direct flow path. Guys are getting burned. Guys are getting hurt. And so now that the research is out, it's like, okay, that is actually a really good tactic. Something else you don't hear about too often, and something that Captain Cruz actually brought up on a hose handling class we did that was really good, was, you know, we talk about, and it was preached to me, like, get to the seat of the fire.
Yeah.
Get to the seat of the fire before you spray any water. I don't want you spraying any. That was kind of the mindset, right? And even now with some more aggressive guys, I mean, you still have that, right? But like the research has shown, man, you know, we don't start feeling heat in our gear till about 400, 500 degrees. Tell me one person that's going to last in a fire that's 400, 500 degrees. I mean, they're getting cooked. There's no way. So, if we're going and we're pushing and like Captain Cruz said, like, you got black smoke. What is that? That's heat.
Yeah.
That means it's hot. That means something's burning deeper. But that means we can also
unignited fuel.
Unignited fuel.
That's what that is.
And so what do? You open up your line and you start busting up that thermal layering. Is it going to steam a little bit? Yeah, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to eventually cool, right? Cool. And that's the thing. You're cooling the environment. We don't have to. We've gotten past that point of just wait until we get there. Mm-hmm. And so I think, it definitely is a mix of taking in the research and applying it to our tactics in the most the best way possible, but we still have to be willing to do the things that are frightening, that are, sure. I mean, that's the definition of courage, right? Not doing something because it's easy, doing something that you're scared to do, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. Right. Yeah. And, when we sign up and we take that oath, and that was something that I would always preach in the academy, is like, I hope you guys know what you're getting into. And I hope you know what you're signing up for, because you may be that person that's in the situation where you've got to look at it. And 9/11 is a perfect example, man. 9/11, those guys looking at there were some that knew they weren't coming back, and they still did it to save as many people as they could save.
That's possible. Yeah.
I forget what that firefighter's name was, but he was ordered to evacuate the building. And he didn't. He said, there are people that are injured in here. I'm not leaving without them. And I mean, he ended up, dying. But, that's the mindset that we have to take. We're serving the community. We've taken an oath to do the extraordinary things that other people aren't willing to do. And yes, you want to do it as safe as you can. But I'm just afraid that when you start implementing policies that handicap firefighters from taking a little bit of risk, then you're probably going to get people that aren't willing to take any risk. And then you're probably going to start losing a lot more lives than you would if we were not as precautious, But like you said, I think it's hard because, I'm just reading this, off the headlines. I don't know what that culture is. I know I can speak for our department and our culture, and I can say it's improved a lot. We've got a lot of newer guys, even the older guys that are accepting the research. The hard part is when you get those guys that are just hell-bent and they still want the black helmets and they still want, the flames licking off the top of their domes. And to them, it's like a battle scar, and it's like, there's no reason. I tell my guys, if we're in a fire and we're getting burned, the only reason we're in there is because we're trying to save somebody. We're not going to be in there with our necks blistered up, our ears blistered up, to save property, right? Because at that point, if the fire is that bad anyway, the property's probably already a lot of damage already. And so I think there's a lot that goes into it, man. Yeah. I really do. But I can say, as somebody that tries to be aggressive, I also understand that there's a time and a place. And I think that's something more than anything. We talk about safety, but I think realistically speaking, preparing your leadership with knowledge and with the skills to be able to make those decisions, those critical decisions, exactly. That's where your safety is going to start, right? Not by handicapping people, by getting them more information, by getting them more classes, by sending them to places where they're not having to spend their own money to do certain things. And when you start doing that, now you're equipping your staff with the knowledge base that they need to make those critical decisions and say, hey, this house is on fire. We don't have anybody behind us, but you know what? We don't need to wait because it's just going to get worse. Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I think, what you describe is excellent, but also like there does take some ownership as an individual. Like that's why, you study. I mean, you're a student of the trade. You're going to like look at stuff and evaluate and figure out like what works, what doesn't, and then especially like if you're at a place that has a lot of activity, so you get experience doing it, so you know what your limitations are for the most part. Like what the building's doing, what's going on, how it behaves under fire, how much is a lot of fire versus this is very minimal. We can get in there and knock it out very easily, and
Right.
so it comes with experience. So it's easy to say like we need to invest into our people, but sometimes you have a culture that's like very accepting. Is like, yeah, we're gonna learn, we're gonna do it, we're gonna study, and then sometimes you have some that are not willing to change their ways, and they're gonna keep doing things the wrong way, at a higher risk, and that's when you have to do something different, take a different approach.
Well, and that's why I feel why it starts in training, right? Why it starts in the
and even like the way that we sorry to interrupt you, but like how we implement it, we didn't just like snap our fingers and the new SOG went. Like we had some growing pains, right?
Right.
We had to like explain it, like this is the terminology, this is what we're doing, this is how it works. This is the reason, even the why. Like we're gonna have a second line, but it's not a second attack line. Like that was a very difficult one. It's very easy to just like, I can put this out too, you know, or the idea of command actually like running the incident and not the incident running command. Like that for some has been, the transition. That's like, we have a systematic way of doing this, and this is what we're gonna do, and you trust the system, and it should work if everyone's playing on the same page, So it takes time for that to like come to fruition, but how do you do that? It's by talking about it, by making fires, structure fires, or training, and so I think that there's been a lot of emphasis on like after actions, like how did we perform? Did we do well? Is there still room for improvement? Secret.
Now, do you think?
Secret.
I know you're not out at a lot of these fires, but do you feel in an after action? Do you truly feel that that you get things handled there?
It just depends, man. I mean, I've seen some of them that are done really well and they've worked, and I've seen some that just like didn't do anything. But like I'm talking about like where we had a mayday call, or where we burned down a whole structure, where we had like a post incident review, like we actually like put documentation to it, a timeline. This is what happened, and it's probably what happens is that like I've seen those because we've done them at officer work days, or we've done them, like a formal review. Like, does it get to everybody? That's part of the stuff. So we've been working on that because we've been posting the audio, those reviews too. We'll put those in there as well. And we probably need to do a better job of getting that out there, because it could be, even if it's a structure fire that you did not respond to, you heard about it or whatever, we want to give you the information so you can look and see and learn from it,
we
right?
listen to them all the time.
And so that's what it is. But is everybody doing that, Right. So it's like, the question you asked me is like, do they work? It's like, well, it can. I mean, it's a tool.
And the reason I asked that is because I feel like there's times where I've been on some and I feel like, because nobody wants to be called out, right? And I'll be the first one to call myself out. Mm-hmm. If I mess up, like, we just had a fire not too long ago. I forgot my thermal imaging camera. We got popped on a call, and we weren't on station. I got to the house, and it came in as a, light alarm. It ended up being a regular alarm. And so I'm putting all my stuff on, and that was the one thing I forgot. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we need the most in there, to be able to locate hidden fire.
On this one where you're looking for the,
that was huge, a great tool, right? Yeah. But the first thing I did was kick myself in the ass. And somebody made a comment, and they're like, man, nobody would have known if you didn't say anything. And I'm like, well,
that's not what it's about.
But that's not what it's about. Yeah. Because if I'm saying this, if I'm willing to put myself out there and say, look, I did this wrong, like, maybe it'll click for somebody else.
Say someone else won't make the same mistake, So it's like, especially like if you paint the whole picture of the scenario, like I'm going from one call that wasn't a structure fire to another one. It's like, normally I have a certain way of putting my stuff together, going to a structure fire from the station, and like obviously when it's en route, you're like getting dressed en route, so you're still getting dressed when you arrive. That's right. It's a big, you wind up with these little patterns of how you do things, and then that works for you. That's how you remember not forget something. So yeah, you work on the little routines that like work for you.
But my thing is, there's people that I think it's more at the chief level, where it's almost like, I've been to some, and I feel like there's some times where people do the wrong things, and the chief just gotta like, hey, no, this is wrong.
And it's hard to say. I mean, maybe they're doing that, they don't want to call that person out in the group setting, but maybe they have it, and then they go to their station afterwards like, hey, you really messed that one up. Like, I'm not gonna call you out in front of everybody, but
as a chief, how do you handle that? If somebody doesn't,
I've done it both ways.
If they're just hell bent, and my point is like, if somebody did something that was clearly wrong, they're not willing to accept it, they do it again, I mean, what do you do?
So like let me back up a little bit. Like if it's something just a safety factor, a safety issue that's like totally egregious, that like we're gonna have to address it now. We can't even like go like leave because
That's a good point.
you could make the call. You could make a call on the way
Right.
back. Like I'm gonna follow them back and talk to them about this, and they make another call and do the same thing. I
Right.
can't have that, right? So you would address that immediately. But if it was someone that's like it goes back to like discipline, right? It's unable, unaware, unwilling. Like, you know, is it like you're just not willing to do this? Like, I mean, it says it clearly here. Like, we're going to have an issue. Like, I mean, we're going to have to go down that road. You know, if it's something that they're unaware, like they just don't understand. Like, let me explain how this works. Why? Back to the why. Like, this is why we have that second line. It's not to be used as a fire attack line. It's a backup line. You know, that's that whole, you know, not to get off topic, but it's like the, you know, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. I mean, that's what we're doing there. That's why that's there. And if you explain that, then maybe they'll understand. It's like, oh, okay, I get it, you know. And then it's just going to take some follow up. Like, I need to be like checking, like, because here's the other thing that happens. We talk about something and we assume that like, oh, they got it, they'll be fine, and it doesn't come out again until it comes out again, and it's a problem.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, do you think that follow up is done enough?
I think that we are trending in the right direction because, you know, everybody wants accountability. And so like now we're seeing a lot of accountability. So not everybody likes that, but that's what it takes, right? Yeah. You're going to have someone that is doing the follow up, making sure they're being held accountable to like fixing whatever that you're working on. And sometimes, you know, there's some other steps in that. There could be, you know, a work improvement plan. Like, hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to make sure I'm going to follow up with you. Like we're going to make sure that you know, correct these things that where you're lacking, you know, and cause it matters. And so, there's a lot of different ways you can handle it, but you know, it just depends on what it is. There's little stuff, you know, forgetting a thermal imager, that's nothing, you know, it's like, it's something just individually that you like, I want to make sure I have it all the time. I might need it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
But because I brought it up, I actually had my chief, you know, give me a really good tip, and it's something that I'm going to do now. And I mean, he straight up told me, he's like, where do you put your helmet?
So you answered your own question because you asked me, do these things work? It's like, it worked.
Yeah. Well, but it worked because I was willing to bring that up. What I'm talking about is like if somebody is there, because I've seen it, and it's like, and you know, I remember there was a fire and the backup line, it went upstairs and the backup line was left down there, and they're like, well, we could see we didn't need the backup line, and the chief was like, well, you need to take the backup line. Yeah. And he's like, well, we could see we didn't need the backup line. And so my thing is, now I don't know if maybe they did. Yeah. Any follow up, right? But if that same mindset continues, you know, my thing is, I feel like, I mean, chiefs can't be afraid to. No. It goes back to feelings, right? We can't worry about hurting people's feelings. If I screw up, I need to know I screwed up, because I'm my biggest critic.
Yeah, of course.
But there's not a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. There's not everybody's like that. Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't like to be corrected and think they know.
Well, and at the end of the day, I think most people want to do a good job, right? So it's like, let me give you the tools to like do a good job. Like if they don't know, like, you know,
right.
You know, like the whole thing on the why, right? The example you use, it's like that backup line needs to be right behind the attack, because if the attack line goes down here, now you're the attack line, and like being at the bottom of the stairs or wherever they were, like you're not.
Yeah, if something goes bad,
you're not fulfilling that priority that we've set up for you in this policy, right? So, like, we have to meet the intent of why we're doing that. I mean, you don't just go through the motions. You know, it's not just like, oh, I put the line here, we're ready, and you're not. We went down this road with RIT for years. Yeah. You're RIT. What does that mean? We just stood out there and like waited for the next assignment. Like no one ever like got the stuff together. Like, hey, if something happens, let's do a walk around 360. Something happens, this is the entry point. This is what we're gonna do. Like, hey, let's set some ladders up. Like, be ready, be RIT. You know, and so that takes some training and then follow up on it. And like, this is how we do these things. So it can work. It's a tool. I mean,
but it's got to start early. And I guess that's my thing, because I think oftentimes we get in a culture of not really, we're more concerned with how somebody's going to feel they look, or how, you know, we approach somebody. And I, you know, that's why I say it starts in training, because, you know, I was listening to that same podcast, and what they were talking about was like, they have a fire academy. Now they're all fire, right? This is in Colorado, I believe, somewhere, but they're all fire. They don't do, I think they carry EMT, basics, but you know, they'll have a paramedic scattered here and there, but it's not like our department, right? But just in their fire academies, their attrition rate is like, they lose like 25% of their people every class. every class. When you hear of departments that are, you know, there's 35 people and then 31 are graduating, you know, I wonder if are all those people really able to do the job, or are we getting to a point where we're just kind of trying to get people through? Yeah. A guy actually quit his department because he said the chief said every single person is going to pass this academy. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure they pass, but we're not going to have anybody fail. Now, I can understand that mindset.
It's like a goal.
Like you, yeah, it's a goal.
It's a goal, but it's not realistic.
But yeah, and when you start making that staple to say, well, we had 35 people that we hired and we graduated all 35. Well, now you're starting to lower your standards just to hit a number.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something safety wise we can't.
Yeah. No.
We can't fall into that.
Yeah, and that might be another topic because that's more like our newer members are. I mean, they're gonna do. I mean, we'll train them the way that we think we should, and they should, you know, meet the standard. If they don't, you know, then they need to find something else or whatever. But if we're talking about decision making, risk versus, we're really talking about the officers and their decisions. And so, you know, that might be another topic. But
it also comes back to where when the officers have to deal with some of that stuff, you know, and that's going to affect the decisions too, right? Like if I've got a guy that can't do the job because they wanted to make sure everybody passed and he's my tailboard, then maybe I am going to have to wait until somebody else comes, or maybe I won't take as much risk or push as far. Then if I have
talking about like you have a unsatisfactory tailboard.
Yeah. You know, and it goes back to, but it's all safety, you know, it's all safety. It's all related to, you know, being able to have the training, have the proper skill set, having the crews that have all that stuff, all that knowledge base to be able to make those decisions. Right. And so, you know, I just think that when it comes down to it, we can't lose sight of the fact that we are, and I've said it 3 or 4 times, but we're inherently in a dangerous job. You know, my wife, she does the sign of the cross. That's her little thing. Every time before I leave, she does it to me 3 times before I go to work. Because, you know, and it doesn't have to be a fire.
No.
It could be anything. Yeah. And that's why when we talk about safety, it's got to be in every single aspect, like you said.
Culture. Yeah.
So, man, T, well, I wanted to cover that today. I think we got some good stuff out of that. Appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. We do have some guests coming up. I got to give a shout out to my boy Travis Crowley, Coach Crowley over there at Robstown. You know, unfortunately they lost this last week, but for the first time in 15 years they made the playoffs.
Wow! Congratulations.
And for anybody that knows anything about Robstown, it doesn't have the best reputation. And to see him there make an impact in the way he has been really awesome. And to see the way the community has really gathered around him and around those boys and those young men is really inspiring.
Making a difference.
Yeah, they're making a huge difference. So keep in tune. We're gonna that's good. We're going to be bringing him on. They just lost this last weekend, so hopefully when his schedule, you know, clears up a little bit, we'll have him on the podcast. But yeah, I'm excited to bring him on and just talk about a cultural shift, right? Because that's what it's about, you know, recognizing that we aren't meeting a certain standard isn't the end all be all. It's what are we going to do about it? And he has definitely taken some steps, obviously, to turn that ship around, and I'm just really proud of him. And we played high school football together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we went to Carroll, graduated together. So he's a really good friend of mine in high school, and you know, we've always kept up with each other. In fact, I think I got a picture of his son wearing one of my Silverback shirts.
Oh, awesome!
From when I was fighting, and now his son is the starting quarterback over there.
Oh, nice!
You know, he's doing some great things. So. You know, God bless you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, don't forget, charge that line.